Hello everybody, welcome. I'm so happy to see you again. This week's video, we are focusing on the full moon in Virgo that we are headed into and the tarot spread that I made for you all to try. And at the end of the video, I have a book recommendation that I really felt called to offer to you. So if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel. Please like this video and share widely. Let's just dive in because we are finally out of Mercury retrograde, and I think that we have moved out of the retrograde shadow. Fingers crossed. It was an especially hairy one for most people that I encountered professionally and privately, myself included. My personal thoughts on that is that we individually, collectively, communally have so much backed up communication in terms of even just being able to know what it is that we feel right now. So how could we possibly communicate that to ourselves, to one another? Why is that? Not at all to assert that we don't know what it is that we feel or that our communities are feeling, but that so much is changing at such a rapid clip, and we are being given so much information moment by moment. It's hard to know what's real, hard to know what's manufactured. All things considered, possible reasons aside, I just know that it was an incredibly intense retrograde, especially because the astrological movement just before that was also pretty intense. And last week we had a square, the first of 3 squares for the week for Jupiter, I believe. We are about a week into the deep, meaningful, sensitive, and wildly introspective waters of Pisces. And we have our second full moon of the year, the full moon in Virgo. And I'm not really sure if it's that I am really tapping very much into the energy of Pisces and thinking about introspection, or if I'm ping-ponging between that and the patron card for Virgo, which I was studying to make this tarot spread for you. But either way, I just really feel as though, hopefully you can see that well, I really feel as though the combined energies of Piscean sensitivity, meaning, and introspection are perfect to usher us into the energy and potential for alchemic change for this full moon in Virgo. This, by the way, is the Artman Tarot deck made by Manzel Bowman. I'm not sure of their pronouns, so I'll just say they, but they made this deck. This is the 2nd edition of this deck and is quite honestly one of my favorites to work with. With the Hermit card as your anchor, again, because the Hermit card is the patron card for Virgo, the great healer. Let's bear all of this in mind as we move forward, right? We are in Pisces season, sensitive, meaningful, deeply introspective with that of the Hermit, the wise, also introspective Hermit with that of Virgo, the healer. The first question that I offer you to try for your spread for this week is, actually not a question. Let me correct myself. As we enter into this deep query between us and spirit, or whatever it is that we communicate with, the first card that I ask you to pull or suggest that you pull is number 1. May I please have a word of encouragement for my journey inward? Before we begin any of this introspection and healing work, I would add, I feel really strongly about encouraging us all, especially in Virgo fashion, to remember, first of all, we don't have to have all the answers ourselves. This is why we're going inward. So from spirits, angels, guardians, God energies, whatever it is that you work with, first, before you begin, ask them for a word of encouragement for your journey inward. The second question that I suggest that you ask is, what expectations of myself can be shed to further help me focus? Focus on what? Whatever it is that you are meant to encounter, nurture, cultivate on your journey inward into Hermit energy. What expectations of myself can be shed to further help me focus? The third card that I'm suggesting you pull here is, what expectations of my surroundings can be shed to further help me focus? What part of your surroundings, maybe you're asking? This is the people in your life. This is your work. This is your neighbors, your commute, your home. Literally any expectation that you may feel the need or responsibility to shoulder from anywhere that your mental, spiritual, or emotional gaze touches. What of that can you shed to lighten your load, to further help your journey inward, your deep, meaningful, sensitive, and healing journey inward? The fourth card that I am suggesting that you pull is, what can I shed now to help this process? So if we're asking in the previous two cards, what expectations of myself and then my surroundings can I shed? If maybe that's challenging for you to really know how to begin to navigate that, how to get rid of expectations, because let's be clear, I think I wrote those questions down because myself, I find it quite challenging to let go of expectations. I got some strong opinions, as some of you likely already have learned. To further help make that clear, what can I shed now to further help this process? Number 5, what can I continue to bring with me into the cave? Ba, 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 ba. As you can tell, I love this deck so much. And I love this card so much. I love this time so much. Not speaking from a Pollyannic perspective, but really and truly as a student of life, this moment in time, Pisces season, and going into a Virgo full moon, it's, again, yes, shedding, cutting, but learning for what? For the purpose of healing, either myself or my community. So let's look at cards 4 and 5 really quickly. You know, if cards 2 and 3 are talking about the removal of expectations to further the journey inward, let's quickly group together cards 4 and 5. What can I shed to help this process? And what can I bring with me to further go into this process, or the cave, the Hermit's cave? My goal, one of my many goals here in discussing divination with you and spiritual work with you, is to, among many things, really take stock of all that we are individually and communally. There's no such thing as an entity or person completely comprised of liability, completely comprised of things that need to be tossed out, rid of, right? A lot of times, and this is me, let me just give you a further note into who I am. This is me really trying hard to live more in the gray matter. I exist so much in black and white. It's either yes or no. It's either this or that. There is no in between, my way or the highway, right? So, pardon my noise. So that said, really remembering that it's not so black and white. It's not just bad or good. Well, okay. All right. My strong opinions are gonna bubble to the surface there. I want you always to be mindful, not just of what maybe you need to get rid of to further assist you in whatever part of your journey you're on, but I really also want to encourage you to take good square looks at what you are doing really well that works for you. Keep doing it. In a lot of one-on-one tarot readings I make a part of the reading that I call a transitional bridge. Any of you that have had readings with me before are very familiar with this already. So we look at where you are and where you're headed, and then we look at the transitional bridge in between these periods of time. What can I offload to help me further get into this next batch of time? Or what is really working for me that I'm doing or that I have access to help me go into this next batch of time? And this is no different. So that in mind as you move forward into this full moon, which might feel even more emotionally charged, especially because we are in precious Pisces season, especially because the beautiful and divine sign of Virgo is represented by the Hermit, right? The journey inward is very valuable, but it is sometimes very intense. So remember this as you go further into your journey. It's not all things that you need to leave outside of the Hermit's cave. There are likely some very beautiful things that you are working with already you should take with you. That shit's working really well. Keep doing it. And that is card number 5. Now number 6, the 6th card that I am suggesting you pull. For whom does my lamplight shine? So now I'm going to offer a second card for those of you that are not already visually able to call forth one of the more classically known versions of the Hermit card. Again, in Menzel's or the Artman deck, it doesn't necessarily look like a lamplight. We could do this all day, but this looks like an inner light, a light from the dome, a light from the crown, a light from the third eye. A light from within is moving outward. But in the Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite, why am I naming the deck that way? We should make a video about that. In the Smith Rider-Waite deck, you can see this very commonly known version of the Hermit who has a lamplight right there. You know, we're talking about the removal of expectations, of self, of community. What can I shed on the outside of the cave to help this further process? And what can I bring with me into the cave to then finally ask the question, for whom does my lamplight shine? Maybe it's yourself, but likely it's the people in your life, your communities, both near and far, is for whom your lamplight shines. And we ask this sixth and final question to really hone the dial and get a bit more or a lot more detail on exactly what parts of your life are you shining this lamplight for. We really look at the removal of expectations and assets and liabilities before we get to this point, because I really want to make this part of your introspective journey as clear and simple as possible for you. Remove expectations. What can you leave? What can you bring with you? And then finally, what's it all for? What's it all for? This brings me to the final part of the video, which is my book recommendation and a note on ending the month of February. So often in the tarot spreads that I make, do I ask the question, or do I pose the opportunity for view, for whom does my lamplight shine? Assuming, of course, that the need for knowledge, the need for introspection, the need for study, time, and care, assuming that the need for that extends beyond the self and the individual. This is the most recent spread, obviously, but generally speaking, I make this work, I pose these questions asking what part of self is this work for, and what part of my community can I help or can I benefit? There's a really good reason for that, is because I very proudly and loudly call myself a witch. right? Duh. You know, huge revelation. But as a witch, tying all of this in together, ending the month of February and then leading into this book recommendation. As a witch, it could not be more clear to me, and I encourage you to really, whether or not you identify as a witch or not, what is your work for? What is the work of your alchemic process, your alchemical way of living? What is it all for if it's not in service of the earth and her or its inhabitants? If you are not seeking to heal the earth and all of its inhabitants, what are you doing? Witch or not? What's it all for? This vast, wild array of power and choice, opportunity, alchemy that we have available to us to work with. What is the fucking point if it's not in service of healing for all? Now, all can be put aside because that is nothing that I really care to talk about. When we sharpen our lens in terms of the earth and its inhabitants and who are the most disenfranchised peoples that we should, not could, that we should be helping, witch or no witch, it is the Black community, period. End of story. Just one moment to piggyback on how or why I pose the questions I do in the tarot spreads that I make for you, for me, for us all. And when I do daily readings on Instagram or whatever it is, I try to be reminded of the necessity to look outward at our communities, at my communities. And the focal point of my work as a witch is social justice, is ecological change, and justice is permaculture. But first and foremost, it's socioeconomic and racial justice. What's it all for? This vast, wild batch of power and energy that we are able to draw from as change makers, as witches, as spiritual practitioners, if it's not for this. So that said, do I have all of the answers? Oh, no. If we are walking into a Virgo full moon this weekend, who in the middle of Pisces season, Virgo, who is represented by the Hermit, right? The one that goes deep within to study, to take care, to contemplate, to really perfect that which is their focus, right? We do this in Pisces season, which happens to start in February, which happens to be Black History Month. By the time this full moon really spills out, it will be spilling out into March, which is no longer Black History Month. And in my humble opinion, a month is just not sufficient. And so, again, do I have the answers to this? No, but I do have the opportunity to encourage you, again, to look at, for whom does my lamplight shine? Likely the answer to that will be varied, it'll be sundered, there will be likely parts of your own self that your lamplight will shine for. Likely. For sure, there are members of your community for whom that lamplight should shine. Self-mastery, personal mastery. Ending February, ending Black History Month. I just want to leave this here, bookmark this moment in time and this discussion for you to say, just because we're ending this month, Black History Month, this work must continue. You know, I could say this work should continue. It must. This work must continue as witches, as change makers, as human beings. The work for social and racial justice must continue. And so I wanted to unofficially but officially recommend this book to you. This is clearly not a sponsored moment. It is a book that I ordered that I am learning a tremendous amount from, that I will likely spend the rest of my life implementing and working towards. This book is called Do Better by Rachel Ricketts. And the subtitle is Spiritual Activism for Fighting and Healing from White Supremacy. I cannot recommend this book enough. Why am I recommending this to you? Because it's one thing for me to offer this perspective in terms of, and why am I offering this perspective? Because it's my job to. Number one. But if we're talking about this moment in time, Pisces season, in the middle of or at the end of Black History Month, which is again not sufficient, we are having time in a Virgo full moon. Again, to reiterate, Virgo is the great healer and is represented by the Hermit. So besides, that which you're working on to perfect, master, and really study in your own life, what parts of the rest of the world are you working toward, and are you working in service of? It's one thing for me to say this to you and make a tarot spread to encourage you to let go of expectations, to look at assets and liabilities, and then finally to look at for whom does your lamplight shine, and then to say part of your lamplight should be toward racial justice, towards ending colonialism, white supremacy in this country and in the world. I can say all that all day, but what if you don't know where to start? You should start with paying a Black woman for their work. And I highly recommend this book. I hope that you are well. I'm so happy to see you. I hope very much that this finds you happy, joyous, and free. I hope that this moment in time and this discussion has really helped you believe in your own capacity for change, for healing, meaning, and introspection. I hope that your heart is well, that your body is well, that your mind is well. And if it's not, I hope that you know or remember that together we can find a way to change that. Merry meet, merry part, merry may we meet again. Thank you. I love you. Again, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it. Mwah.